it is interesting how some people reacted to my recent little video where I mentioned the relation or the similarity between sports and karate or kobudo, which is seen or considered as an either budo or bujutsu. Now people have very little idea what budo actually means, what a Japanese martial art actually means. They have a rough idea maybe, but there are certain problems and a lack of understanding does not help in the current discussions about sport versus karate or karate versus sport. Is it the same? Is grading karate the same as sport karate? Is lifestyle karate by people who never did sport and then suddenly became health gurus and doing jumping jacks and all that all day? And is that the same, or is that something different? In order to understand that, and in order to talk about that, you need to understand Budo. Because Budo in Japan originally, let's say, was by 75% built on the idea of Western sport at that time. Okay, where the idea of Western sport is a nationalistic idea of like how to get the folk, how to get the masses like trained, how to indoctrinate certain things into their minds. And that was the original idea of Budo, just using not Western sport like table tennis or wrestling or something else, but a Japanese sport, because it was a nationalistic idea, okay? And it has to be a martial sport, so it has to be something that has a warrior spirit, right? Don't think of the 17th century on some island in Okinawa. Think of the early 20th century, you know, First World War and all that. So that was the original idea of Budo. It was a nationalistic phenomenon meant for indoctrination and for building up a warrior spirit and a spirit of sacrifice. This is what they, the idea what they, the Japanese like. This is what they wanted to put in the people, of course, sacrifice, so that they don't run away at the front. It's that easy, all right? And these ideas, they were implemented into modern karate. It's not an art of peace or something, all that. So, Budo, right, okay, I give you that. Originally, the term Budo was used earlier, like other terms, like Bugei, Bujutsu, but it was so rarely used that it was actually like more or less something like a mishap, like when it was once used in the 18th century or something. So original terms for that were Bugei and Bujutsu. The term Kobudo, it's a modern term. It has been begun to be used in the 1930s or something. It's not an old term, it's a retrospective term, right? Now we continue with Budo. As everybody knows, some of the Budo, for the reasons I just said, have been prohibited by the Allies after the defeat of Japan in 1945. Particularly Kendo and Judo. Kendo, you know, a bamboo sword. It's not actually something that you kill someone with, right? But it was this nationalistic indoctrination kind of thing that made it problematic. That's why they prohibited it for some time. But the Japanese, they didn't want to give it up. So they reinvented Budo in the second half of the 20th century. And this went in steps. It started again with school education. And they call it kakugi. Kakugi is like, it's just a technique, just a martial technique, fighting technique or something. So they didn't call it Budo anymore. They call it kakugi. And this developed to kakutogi, which is our combat arts which we have today, which is everything. It's not Japanese Budo. It's just fighting sport, combat sport. Kickboxing, Thai boxing, everything. Jiu-jitsu, That's all kakutogi, you know. Kyokushin, you can argue it might be just, they wear karate clothes and they have some karate background, but actually it's kakutogi, right? And so, and in this way, modern Budo, today's Budo, is a reinvention of the 1980s. It just happened a little time ago. So it's not like, yes, it's so old and it has been handed down for like forever and all that. It's not the case, you know. Look into it. It's you know, it's very important. And consider it has the same idea as 19th century Western sport, like German Turnen of Jan, and it has some ideas of the French Revolution, like Emile. You know Emile. It's you know, from France. If you don't know these things, you have no tool. You have no possibility to even consider and understand what Budo, and in extension what karate and modern kobudo, what it is or originally was. And only then you can understand what they present to us now, you know, with all the organizations and all that, and you know, the person cult they have, and you know, the name cult and the so-and-so cult and so-and-so cult and all that. You have no means to understand what this actually is in relation to where it came from, right? So I get a few mixed, how can I say, responses to my video of yesterday, which is good, because yeah, when I looked, I got 3 likes and 2 dislikes. And I can imagine the dislikes. Of course, if you tell the people, look, you are saying Okinawa this, Okinawa that, Okinawa this, so as if it's a mantra, you know, it gives you secret power, like Okinawa, like that, right? And it's something like that. And there are many ways you can do that, you know. There are these cult groups, I'm not going to say the name, but these are personal cults, more or less, believers, similar to the JKA, which are more like sects, you know, and they are the more open clubs. There's everything there. It's not one homogeneous group, right? So you have to look at it, listen to the explanation, if they give any. Usually there are no explanations, right? This is what we got, take it or leave it, right? So again, if you want to talk about Budo, and I'm studying it more or less deep, like 23, 24 years on and off, yeah. So I know a little what I'm talking about here, right? And I'm, how can I say, I'm not too happy with the lack of knowledge, with the amount of discussion that's going on and the words being used and thrown around, and sports, the concepts like sports and Budo and karate and bujutsu are thrown at each other without any knowledge of where it's coming from, okay? So get your act together, study a little bit more, dive a little bit more into the history of it, get a little into the pain. It's like going deep into shikudachi, right? Don't give up so early, yeah? And most of all, trust me. And that was a joke, okay?